The English, a Jeff Bezos product. Go from one monopoly to another. Um, yeah, The English was a TV series, short series that we didn't talk about last week, but came out and dropped all of its episodes last week. And I think it was something that we were interested in, but I was going in fairly blind for this one. But you tell me Emily Blunt is doing a mini series, and I mean, why not watch it, right? What'd you think of the English? English is 6 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's kind of right. Like, I didn't really have any expectations or anticipation for The English as a series, but when I saw it was starring Emily Blunt and was the latest series from Hugo Blick, who we last talked about with Black Earth Rising on Netflix with Michaela Cole, I was like, well, that's a TV voice that's pretty established over the last 10 years. And Emily Blunt, of course, is a star who's been killing it for years at this point. Might as well check it out. I like westerns. I have Amazon Prime. Most people in England have the BBC, so very accessible. And yeah, I mean, what a confounding but still kind of good show The English is. It's kind of like our thoughts on Black Earth Rising. I think this Hugo Blick's like style of storytelling is very specific to him,
Mm.
which is cool that he has his own voice. But I think there's definitely some ups and downs with his approach, at least in the English. So I liked parts of it, but I did find really just the plot and the narrative uh, difficult to follow and stick with as we meet more and more supporting characters, and just the core tension of the plot with our two lead characters is just a bit muddled, but still looks great. I think the acting is really strong, so overall it's pretty solid. But I think there was kind of a major flaw with like the storytelling.
Yeah, I felt similar. This was actually one of the rare instances where I felt like you have a mini series, a television show that should have just been a 2 maybe 2 hour and 15-minute movie. Um, because I think what you get with Blunt and Cheske Spencer as Cornelia and Whip, Wounded Wolf, is really strong. Those two performances obviously carry it, but I think they have a great chemistry. Although I think the romantic chemistry I didn't necessarily feel, and that was an aspect I wish they just decided not to go with. But we'll get
Hmm.
more into that. But then I feel like you get these like this meandering western feel where it's almost kind of like bottle episode in some aspects, and it's like, man, I don't know how much the like side quests or the side stories really grabbed me. I always just kind of wanted to go back to whatever Cornelia was getting at, and how her and Whip were kind of working towards those goals together. I think I think the side stories were varying degrees of successful, but like you said, the show looks great. I mean, when they get back to whatever is going on with Cornelia and Eli, that's when the show is I think humming on all cylinders. And then you get a couple of I think standout performances, here and there. I think Rafe Spall as
Mm.
David Melmont, the villain, gets a lot to chew on, and he's certainly chewing on it. I think the flashback is pretty effective and gutting, and definitely I think highlights the overall message of it, which is like, yeah, white men fucking ruined all this shit. We're
Mm.
just horrible towards um, minorities and women, and um, yeah, it's very sad the like commercialization of the West, and how
Yeah.
that's kind of told in this. So effective storytelling, but definitely some things I didn't like as well. What were the like episodes or moments that stood out to you most?
I think in general, like obviously, like the Western is a very popular and still effective genre, but like this specific like moment, it's like 1890, like end of the Indian Wars, taming of the American West time, right? And a big part of that, I think, is a lot of hardship with native populations, which is covered in this show pretty extensively. But I think like there's still a lot of like great tension with that, especially when you have a character like Eli Whip, who is a pawnee man who worked with the U.S. Army and thus had to uh, fight against his fellow native in the process. Like that's a really great character and contradiction of a person, you know. And I think this show also, with some of those other side characters you meet, brings along like that other perspective of like native people trying to find their way in a post-West world. You know, like I think they do a good job of kind of establishing like the all the territories that are being formed up by the government and who can lay claim to the lands and stuff like that. I like all
Mhm,
that stuff, you know. I think just sometimes the side stories just kind of distracted me, I think, because I feel like I just didn't need to meet like another like shitty or morally ambiguous white settler type. Like I feel like
mhm,
we had enough of those on the show. I actually would have preferred more native perspectives.
mhm,
Um, just because I think it's more interesting. You know, a lot of those, uh, you know, cowboy types. I feel like you kind of know what you're getting with those. Now, sometimes I think there's a lot of good stuff with that, like Black Eyed Mog. That character is just very memorable. You know, as a
yeah,
side character with her eyes and whatnot, and the way she talked and stuff. But yeah, like I think just when Whip was interacting with other Native Americans, I thought that was awesome, and just him in
mhm,
general. Like I think Spencer's like presence on screen is incredibly evident um, as a memorable Native figure on screen, and I think I liked him more than Blunt. Like I think Blunt's good in the show, but like I was expecting her to be a bit more rousing. You know, there was actually a lot more, I think, like tragedy to her character than I was expecting, selfishly.
mm,
Um, but of course, she's really, I think, comfortable in this kind of setting, as you know, we know with her career and stuff like Edge of Tomorrow or even Jungle Cruise last year, right? Like she can handle this kind of stuff, and she does it quite well. I think my favorite moment overall was in episode 5 when they're Whip and Cornelia are trying to survive against that sniper who's trying to take
mm,
shots at them at long distance, and how
yeah,
that's going. And the sniper is leaning back, aiming his gun along his legs crossed. You
mhm.
know, like stuff like that, like little moments I quite enjoyed. Um, but yeah, like I said, like, I think the plot overall is a bit hard to grasp onto. But you know, moment to moment, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I thought one of the side quests that did work for me was actually the native couple who's
Exactly.
like exploiting the white folk and the people passing through. And I thought it was interesting to kind of get that perspective and like that was a take that I hadn't ever really considered. But that makes a lot of sense. It's like they're in some ways just profiting off of the idiocy and the people not knowing what they're doing. I also I also liked the like chase sceneness of the I don't know if it was like I think it was a German
Hmm.
German settlers and like trying to get the kids back together. I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But like not it's like I remember moments of it, but other moments kind of fell short. I think like I think there's like some great moments and some things that come through with the side quest, but I really wanted to get back to like, okay, what is Cornelia getting at here? Like, tell me more about this relationship that she keeps referring back to. Like, it's so like shrouded in mystery, and I think Whip is like a very like complicated but like very interestingly drawn character in terms of his history as a soldier with the United States Army, working for them out in the West. You see the flashback to that massacre and him kind of being the one that had to like find these soldiers and what a complicated uh like dynamic that is and just how he feels so torn. I thought that all was pretty interesting. I have to say if you ask me like how did they get from point A to point B and like what was the overall like plot, it would be very difficult to I think summarize it, but it was just like just enough to kinda keep me interested every single episode, which I give them a lot of credit for. Tell me about the things like or like moments that maybe you wish were a little different or things you would have cut out. Like for me, I mentioned the romance wasn't
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I agree on the romance. I think a lot of stuff with those soldiers, you know, just like
Mm,
them as antagonists, like there's a lot of like back and forth and jumping forward and back with the timelines, and like it just felt a bit convoluted because ultimately it's not a complicated story or
Right.
plot, but the way it's told makes it come across that way and harder to follow than it really should be. It's just stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think the idea of them being these two like broken people who find each other and then are like companions through this like scary like new world for Cornelia and this like broken world and hopeless world for Eli was enough already. Seeing them like I don't know, like I think it's episode 5 when they finally like kiss, and it's like I didn't even feel like a romantic presence between them, and then I think they kind of I felt like that was a bit forced. I think they would have been okay regardless of that. But what do you think of the very end? Like I think they're taught he's she's talking to their child, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean the whole development like of like the syphilis side of it, I was like, oh, this kind of snuck
Mhm.
up on me as a
Yeah,
added like dramatic weight. It's like, ah, it's all right, I guess. I think it was a good way to ground it though in the forward advancement of time with like the Buffalo Bill show and like what that represented for Native people in the post West time. So that was, I think, effective, and like kind of like that postscript with like those flash forward scenes are good enough. But yeah, like I don't know, I wasn't super invested in a lot of the like personal dramas of it by the end.
yeah. Yep, completely agree. Uh, I am interested to see if because this has gotten fairly good reviews. I wonder if Amazon, as they are still kind of figuring out how to build out their streaming platform. Uh, I mean, they have some great series. We talked about The Boys, talked about Lord of the Rings. I wonder if they might start building out more of these mini series, though. Getting some creators that
Mm,
just want to like do some stuff. I mean, you had the small axe stuff. Um,
right.
was that 2 years ago now? Jeez.
Yeah,
Uh,
2020. Yep.
but I think this sort of thing is kind of I think a lane that they could start infringing on HBO's
Yeah.
territory a bit.
Well,
So
they do have the Donald Glover deal that
true.
will soon bear fruit with Atlanta ending. Maybe Donald and friends go down the miniseries route. Who can say?
Yeah, and Phoebe Waller Bridge, obviously they have a good relationship with her with Fleabag. So
Yep.
you get the creators, people will come.